Well, it only took some of the biggest names in fake news MSM 3.5 days to finally start reporting on this story. Viva Frei, former Montreal litigator turned current Florida Rumbler, in my home office with a horrible story that I'm sure all of you have already heard of, but not for lack of trying of legacy media to cover it up by simply not reporting on it. From 6 ABC, stabbing. Shocking video shows Ukrainian woman stabbed to death on Charlotte train by ABC 11 digital staff, updated 2 hours ago. The only problem, this story goes back to late August, and the footage, the graphic footage that has shocked the world, and rightly so, was released on Friday, and it's now Monday at the time of shooting this vlog, and finally now, some of MSM is starting to cover this story. I wonder why they would avoid it in the first place. You'll get the idea why in a second. Charlotte, North Carolina, a 23-year-old woman was stabbed to death on a Charlotte train over 2 weeks ago. Now officials with the Charlotte Area Transit System, CATS, have released surveillance footage from the incident. On Friday, August 22nd, Irina Zarutska boarded the CATS Blue Line and sat in an aisle seat in front of DeCarlos Brown. Video footage shows that she was wearing headphones and the two had no interaction, according to ABC affiliate WSOC. The train was en route to the East-West Boulevard station and there were many passengers on board. During the ride, Brown, unprovoked, pulled out a knife and stabbed Zarutska to death. After the attack, video shows Brown walking to the other end of the train and removing his hoodie. Several passengers rushed to help Zarutska. And here you have a picture of the accused murderer. DeCarlos Brown is facing murder charges after stabbing a woman to death on a Charlotte transit train on August 22nd, 2025. Now, I've been following enough of these stories to have gotten very, very cynical. Depending on the demographics of the act of criminality, the media coverage will be more or less. If it were reversed by way of races, holy hell, would this be national headlines? There would be protests in the street, but because of what it is and the demographics of who it was, it seems that MSM is slightly less than interested in covering this story. A lot of people are going to go with the racial angle on this. I'm not necessarily going to focus on the racial angle of this. I would, in fact, focus on the mental illness aspect of this and the fact that this man had a rap sheet longer than I am tall. Brown has a history of criminal activity and mental health issues, WSOC reported. The 23-year-old victim was living in Charlotte after fleeing the war in Ukraine with her mother, sister, and brother. Those who knew Zarutska described her as a gifted and passionate artist who loved sculpting and designing clothing that reflected her vibrant spirit. She was also an animal lover who often cared for her neighbor's pets. I say that this man had a criminal record that is longer than I am tall because he did. He was systematically arrested, let go, and now he finally, presumably, will not be let go unless he gets off by reason of mental insanity. Who the hell knows? Libs of TikTok has been covering this story despite the fact that legacy media has been very reluctant to do so, and she rightly pointed out the amount of times this man had been arrested for violent crimes and released to the streets only to stab an innocent woman to death from behind, unprovoked, on a train. Libs of TikTok, at Libs of TikTok. Who are the judges who kept letting this psycho go free after each arrest? And on the bottom, you have a series of images of the mugshots of the accused murderer each and every time he was arrested, with the exception of the second to left one on the bottom row. I think that's somebody else. And in response to that tweet, I tweet at the Viva Frei, Democrats love criminals. They literally go out of the way to protect them from the political to the judicial level. This has become abundantly clear. Now, others who are probably even more cynical than me took a different angle as to why the media wouldn't have been reporting on this. One such angle is that the media is controlled by Jews and they don't want to focus on this story, so somehow they're ignoring it. I dare say I don't think that makes sense for a number of reasons, and I said as much in response to a tweet to that effect on the Twitterverse. Truth-teller at Truth-teller FTM, how come Jewish-controlled mainstream news hasn't covered this story? To which I replied at the Viva Frei, you are literally quote-tweeting coverage of the story by a religious Jew while including a video of the story as reported in mainstream news. And the story has been covered by Fox News and MSNBC affiliates. It isn't getting the coverage it deserves for obvious political reasons, but the Jew angle of your tweet is idiotic on its face. That being said, although I disagree with the reason for which this individual was suggesting some MSM outlets were not covering it, I did observe that CNN in particular, up until this morning, had not covered this story at all. In response to a tweet from Kirk Lubimov at Kirk Lubimov, which reads as follows: CBC nothing, CTV nothing, Canadians with Ukrainian flags in their profile nothing. Why is everyone so silent on this? To which I replied at the Viva Frei, some mainstream media outlets have been covering this story, but it has definitely been getting less coverage than it would have gotten had it been a white Russian man stabbing a black woman or Ukrainian woman in the neck. That being said, one outlet has been remarkably silent at CNN. Why no coverage, CNN? Well, it seems that CNN has either gotten the memo or felt the need for the ratings to cover a story that has been burning across social media, and they finally covered the story barely 3 hours ago as at the time of while shooting this vlog. Viva Fry at the Viva Fry. It seems at CNN finally determined that the murder of Irina Zarutska was of sufficient importance to cover. I guess the quest for ratings finally took precedent over the politics of them entirely ignoring the story. It only took them 3 days. And here you have a screen grab of the coverage, and you can see that it's only 3 hours ago that CNN finally reports on the story. When tragedy occurs, people are going to politicize the tragedy one way or the other, specifically for either placing greater emphasis on the story or ignoring it entirely. But one story that broke this morning that I found particularly interesting was an alleged GoFundMe, or as I like to call them, GoFme, that was set up to raise funds for the accused murderer. From Newsweek, GoFundMe responds to DeCarlos Brown Jr. fundraiser, September 8, 2025, 3:16 a.m. by Jordan King. Fundraising site GoFme has said donation pages for a man suspected of murdering a Ukrainian refugee on a train in Charlotte, North Carolina last month have, quote, been removed, end quote. DeCarlos Brown Jr., 34, has been charged with the murder of 23-year-old Irina Zarutska, who was stabbed on August 22nd. Correction, she wasn't stabbed in the passive sense. He stabbed her on August 22nd, allegedly. It's only on video for everyone to see. Screen grabs posted to social media over the weekend showed several GoFundMe fundraisers have been launched for Brown Jr. Newsweek also contacted Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department, CMPD, via email outside of normal office hours on Monday. Why it matters? The removal of GoFundMe pages highlights how online fundraising platforms apply content rules to campaigns tied to criminal cases and intersects with broader public debate about public safety and platform moderation. Everyone immediately thought this was suspicious on its face because everybody knows that GoFme, in addition to abusing of its so-called rules for political purposes, doesn't allow perpetrators of violent crimes to raise money in support of or as a result of their alleged violent crime. What made this particular GoFme fundraiser suspicious is who was organizing it and the screenshot or the picture that they used, the profile picture that they used for the GoFme fundraiser for the accused murderer, pleading that it was mental insanity and a system that failed the accused murderer. It looked like a troll, it looked like it might have been a Psy-Op, and I'm convinced it probably was. Viva Fry at the Viva Fry. Hey, GoFundMe, who set up the fundraiser for the accused murderer DeCarlos Brown Jr.? Were they able to withdraw any of the funds raised? Everyone knows GoFme does not allow fundraising for people accused of violent crimes. Some are hypothesizing that the individual who purportedly set up the GoFme is either himself an accused rapist, see attached screenshot, and or that the fundraiser was a scam from the inception. Can you please provide a comment and indicate if you are working with authorities to pursue charges against the organizer to the extent it was indeed a scam? Thank you for your attention to this matter. And here I reference a tweet from Sir Escanor at Escanor Reloaded, and in as much as I have been able to verify this on the internet, it looks like the images line up. Can't make it up. Rapist sets up racist GoFundMe for that animal who stabbed the Ukrainian girl. The DeCarlos Brown Jr. GoFundMe scam. Ryan Nicholas Rangham, aka Sean Riley. And here you have the series of images that seems to confirm the profile picture is in fact the mugshot of someone who is accused of rape. If you are still watching this video and you like my content and analysis, be sure to like, share, subscribe, turn on notifications, drop a comment in the comment section below and let me think if I've gotten too cynical in life. But you have a tragedy like this, and then you're going to have people racializing it from one angle, ignoring it from another, and then opportunistic scammers setting up GoFme fundraisers, not necessarily even for the purposes of raising money, but for the purposes of creating social strife. I want to know who set up that GoFme, where they were based, if it's a real person, if they were using a picture off the internet that they knew would create further strife and controversy. But that is where things stand with respect to this story as at the current date. It is Monday, September 8th, I think, 2025. That is the story. If you like what I do, you know what to do, but most importantly, exercise, eat healthy, sunshine, talk to people in real life, and now you know your vlog. Peace out, peeps. Booyah!